Friedrich Nietzsche was one of the greatest and most influential thinkers of all time. But one of the downsides of being such a great thinker is that your ideas are not quite understood by the masses. The herd, he would call them. And so many people have this idea that Friedrich Nietzsche kind of laid the groundwork for Nazism, both as a philosophical concept, a movement, and an ideology. And we are going to get to the bottom of this question. Hello friends, my name is Michael McCauley. Thanks so much for tuning in. And let's get right into the show. So to answer the question, no, Friedrich Nietzsche was not a supporter of Nazism, nor did he lay the framework. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time. Now I'm just playing. Now the answer is still mostly no, but let's get into some detail here, right? Most people have this association of Nazism and Friedrich Nietzsche because of the word Übermensch or Superman. Now, the reason this is important is because this was a core belief in Nazism. The Nazis believed that the Germans were the Übermenschen or the master race, Ehrenvolk, and they really just stole Nietzsche's word for the Übermensch. And of course, Nietzsche himself used the word Übermensch quite a lot in his philosophical writing, but it was in a very different context. So we can get into some of the philosophical nuance a little bit later, but at the very core basis of Nietzsche's writings, the Übermensch was someone who defines their own values, someone who overcomes their own demons, and someone who reaches self-actualization. Someone that truly takes all of their potential, however much it may be, and they actually live up to it. There was no component of race or religion or anything else. In fact, it was kind of anti-religion. Instead of following the morals of everyone else or some kind of group or herd, you were supposed to create your own morality and then live by it. Another important thing to point out is that Nietzsche did not create the inverse of the word, Untermensch, or subhuman. The Nazis took this really cool sounding word, Übermensch, and they just kind of flipped it. Well, we're the Übermensch, and you see those people over there that we want to kill? Yeah, those are the Untermensch. And it's extremely ironic because Nietzsche himself would have frowned upon using his language to shame other people. Nietzsche was a strong believer in the idea that the Übermensch is not someone who berates other people or calls them less than human or anything like that. It's someone that's just not judgmental. And let's say you became a follower of Nietzsche's philosophy and you tried to achieve the Übermensch state, right? That you became this higher version of yourself. Well, you were less than if you insulted other people. Any outward expression of negativity was kind of frowned upon, and if you read his philosophical work. So yes, something that was part of Nietzsche's philosophy did get co-opted by the Nazis and used in a completely different context, which created this horrible association. But at the end of the day, that is not what Nietzsche meant. It's also important to understand that Friedrich Nietzsche was not a Nazi. He actually wasn't even alive when the Nazis were around. But his sister, she lived on for quite a while, and she was very much a Nazi. In fact, she met Adolf Hitler. And she was not only an admirer of the Third Reich, but she took Nietzsche's works, who by that point had already become something of an iconic writer and great thinker already. And she took his works and then edited them and kind of made it fit the Nazi agenda, which is insanely manipulative. But I think one of the best ways to understand how Nietzsche is opposed to Nazism is by understanding his stance on the state or the government. Now, he generally refers to the state or the government. It's not specific to Germany or Europe or anywhere else. It's just generally the state, this force that governs everyone else. In his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which is a great read, it's very complex, but it's such a wonderful book. And in it, he talks about the new idol. This new idol is something that is coming in and it is replacing the old idol, who was God, the Christian God, Jesus. So everyone's a Christian, and everyone's believing in God, everyone's paying their homage, going to the Catholic Church, but here comes the new idol. But who is the new idol? Well, it is none other than the state, something that he refers to as the coldest of cold monsters. And in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, there is this really powerful passage about the state. Now, there's just a couple sentences here, but I think this gives you a good gist of the entire passage. Quote, "But the state lies in all languages of good and evil, and whatever it says, it lies, and whatever it has stolen." So this is someone that very obviously does not hold the state or the government in very high regard. So the idea that he was somehow a proponent of Nazism or early Nazism, I mean, that's just foolishness. I mean, you have to imagine the spectrum of people who are pro-state and people who are anti-state. Well, the Nazis, you see, they're all the way over here. They are extremely pro-state. Let's make the government as big as humanly possible so we can, use it to our ends and, do Nazi things with it. Well, here's Nietzsche all the way over here, who is, there should be no state, or at least very close to it. Now, he didn't necessarily become an anarchist, but I think he acknowledges some of the true evils of what the state really is. Because when you sit back and think about it, most of the worst evils that have ever happened in human history, well, they're really done by the state. And as much as I would love to go on a rant about that, let's just move on before I do. Another big philosophical idea Nietzsche was very adamant about was this idea of death and rebirth, being reborn, recreating yourself. Now, the Nazis took this concept and they applied it to an entire nation. So you are not an individual, you are a member of this larger collective. And through a death, we can be reborn. This is actually an idea that is very popular in fascist thought groups. And it's really ironic because all these very pro-big government kind of people, right, fascists, I mean, literally let the state control everything, they pay homage to Nietzsche for creating this idea. But guess what? He didn't create that idea. His idea of death and rebirth applied to the individual, especially when it came to, right, becoming the Übermensch, not some kind of master race thing. So if you ever see a fascist who is very much a supporter of Nietzsche, or someone who reads Nietzsche all the time, just let him know, hey, Nietzsche was against the state, man. And another really big concept that Nietzsche was a proponent of was this idea of will to power. I think the best way I've ever heard it put goes kind of something like this. Will to power is taking your highest self, your ultimate manifestation of what you are, and achieving that and using all of your energy to do so. And there's almost a natural or biological component to it. Think about it like this, right? If you have a bear in the wood, that bear does not necessarily need to be the strongest bear in the world. It just needs to be the best or good enough to catch food. So it's not necessarily physical power. And I actually think when you really sit back and ponder it, physical strength, or the way people generally put it, it's kind of a distortion of what is going on here. It is about achieving self-actualization. It was never about forcing your will upon other people. You don't have to hurt anyone else for you to be the best that you can. Now that is only true if you apply it to an individual level. If you apply it to an entire nation state, like Germany for example, well then you run into the issue of, well, yeah, maybe our country is better off if we invade and kill a bunch of people over there and take their land, incorporate it into our country. And that is just one of the many, many ways that the Nazis really co-opted and warped all of Nietzsche's ideas. If Friedrich Nietzsche had been alive to see the Nazis, he would have considered them sheep of the herd and worshippers of the new idol, the state. He would have regarded them with disdain. He would have looked down upon them. He would have asked them, hey, you guys are kind of crazy. You should probably fix this. Are you gonna do that? Here, 1 second. I'm almost done. I'll be up in like, I love you. Here, I'll go in just 1 minute if you give me 1 minute. If Nietzsche had been alive to see them, he would not have called them Übermensch. because they were not achieving self-actualization. They were being led by their shadows. They were doing horrible things, and they were stopping other people from achieving self-actualization. So yeah, those are just a couple of really good examples of why Friedrich Nietzsche was not some kind of Nazi thinker in any way, shape, or form. All of his ideas were completely warped. But that's going to be it for the video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.